Norm, welcome to the Regional Football Hub. We certainly appreciate you taking your time with us to chat about your journey and your wealth of experience in football. So we're really appreciative to have you on today to have a chat. So I hope everything's going as best as it can be in COVID world, and hope you're doing well. So thanks for coming on.
No problem, mate. It's certainly a challenging time, but we're getting through it.
For sure.
Well, we have some intro questions that we'll go through that may involve football. Some of them don't. If you could be a professional in any other sport apart from football, what would it be?
I used to play a bit of cricket when I was younger. Well, obviously, we always played two sports. People around about my age always had the choice of winter and summer, but now it's full time. Football's full time. But yeah, I used to love playing cricket. I was a reasonably handy player. I played lower levels, rep cricket and that, and got a couple of centuries and a double century and a few hat tricks. And yeah, it's a great game to play. And it's I wish there was another day in the week I could play, but there's no more days in the week. But yeah, cricket.
Sound like you're an all-rounder. I was going to ask if you were the drink carrier, but
yeah, I had a few goes at that in the rep teams and that, 12th man, and minding. They used to call it minding the horses in the days. You'd sit near the bags and they would mind the horses. So if you got told you were minding the horses, you're the 12th man. So yeah, had a few of them, but yeah, it was good time, and I love my cricket, and grew up watching people like Dennis Lilly and Jeff Thompson and Alan Border and people like that. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. If you're writing a book, what would your autobiography be called?
Oh, yeah. I don't know, something like Out of Greenacre or something. We were western suburbs of, for you guys that don't know, western suburbs of Sydney. I come from a family of 12, so we had it pretty lean in them days. And yeah, I'd just say something Out of Greenacre because it's a great place. It was a great place to grow up. Everyone loves where they live, and I love where I come from. And the fact that most of my brothers are all rugby league players, and one was a soccer player and got me involved in soccer. So they were good days. So I'd say something Out of Greenacre.
Beautiful.
I'll throw you on the spot here a bit, Norm, but everyone has a go-to joke, whether it be a football one or not. Do you have a go-to joke?
I do have a go-to joke, but I'm not certain whether I could tell it here. But so I'll try and find one later on for you that I'll think about later on.
Perfect.
I do have a few jokes.
I'm sure they're going to play out as we talk anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I tell you, I don't know whether you know, but they found Bin Laden. He was hiding, and he was hiding in a cave. And they said, "What are you doing in there?" He said, "It's like the Liverpool trophy cabinet. It's cold, dark, and lonely."
I love that joke. So Liam's going to love that joke.
Yeah.
So, no, you can't say that anymore. Now they're doing really well, aren't they?
Yeah,
very well.
How do you cope under pressure? If there was a penalty to win the World Cup, do you think you'd handle it?
I would have said yeah, without a doubt, once upon a time. But last year I still play in the over 45s with my local club, and last year I'm fairly good, usually pretty good at penalties, but now I've lost all my confidence. So I went to put it in the corner and I put it over the fence, which is about 10 feet high. So yeah, not confident now. So I'd say no, I wouldn't be taking one.
Fair enough. How rich would you be if you had $1 for every time you had a football coffee meeting?
Boy, I'd be rich. I'd be a rich person. And I'm a rich person anyway, because in terms of, you talk about coffees and social outings with your footballing mates, and I'm sure you all do this and have done it. Is you build up your knowledge of bank of knowledge from talking to other people about games and things like that. Even people that don't really understand the game fully, you always get something from them about it. And I think those coffees are, while not they're not valuable in dollars, they're valuable in the base of knowledge you build up over the years. I think I'm a rich man in that regard.
Great answer.
Very fair comment. Obviously, been involved in football for many years. Is there any life qualities you think that football has given you in everyday life?
Oh, definitely. I think, a lot of the times I can liken life to a football game. You have the ups and the downs, you have the ins and the outs, you have the disappointments. You've got to build yourself back up again without relying on other people to build you up. So at the end of the day, it is a lot like real life is like football. And you've got your challenges, and you've got to work as a team. You get married, you've got to work as a team, keep your family together. They're part of your team, your extended team. And there's no real coach, although my wife, she thinks she's a bit of a coach. But mate, I think life lessons are football lessons as well. If you've done the wrong thing, if the pitfalls, the advantages and disadvantages of doing certain things a certain way. And I think it's a lot like life. And if you treat, and again, you talk about playing opposition players, becoming friendly with them, having respect for them, and them having respect for you. They're the qualities in life that you've got to follow through in your life. When you get married or you get older, and things happen, and you've got to be able to work around them. And I think it's in a similar vein. It's like, as I said, it's like life. Football's like life, and there's no saying football is life. So it's pretty much given me a good grounding, a good rounded, understanding of how to treat people and be treated by people. And I think there's some of the values that you get from team games, team sport like football.
Yep. So you go for the other all-white team, which is Real Madrid, so Leeds United. How did that come about?
Well, the funny thing, people used to say to me, "Oh, you follow Leeds because of Harry Cool and Mark Viduka," and that. No, I followed Leeds in the late '60s, early '70s, when a coach called Don Revie was in charge there, and they had a golden era. My best mate goes for Man United, and he picked up on Man United. I picked up on Leeds United, and I was doing a paper run. For you guys that don't know what paper runs are, it's I used to get the papers delivered to your house, and I used to drag a barrow behind me, and then I'd get a bike. Later on, I got a bike and done a paper run, and I saved up my money and sent over to England in the old Shoot magazine, and bought a tracksuit, Leeds United tracksuit. So that was in 1971, and I've been following, as I said, I've been following for years and years. Some of the players, you wouldn't know some of the players, but I could rattle them off: Madeley, Cherry, Yoroth, Jordan, Harvey, David Harvey, goalkeeper. Do your research there. Liam, do your research on your goalkeepers. David Harvey was a brilliant goalkeeper for Leeds in the day. But yeah, I followed him and followed him through thick and thin. We've had a very lean time of it lately, and we just finished on 71 points. So the word is that we're going to get promoted to the Premiership. So hopefully that stays true. But we haven't heard anything in black and white yet. So at this point we're leading the competition, back where we should be.
Almost back there. How did you handle Brian Clough taking over from Don Revie?
It was the worst 44 days of my life. To be fair. Look, we as I said, you've got to go through these things, and Cloughie must have had his reasons for doing what he did, and and the players to a degree have to take some responsibility for that as well. So it wasn't just about Clough. I mean, if you have a look at his record, he's got a fairly good record as well. So
yeah.
I'd say that not being close enough to it, the players had a little bit to do with it as well.
Could be worse, mate. Could be an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, mate. Look, we had some great old battles with Arsenal and Chelsea, in the days, and we picked up a few, the old Fairs Cup, I think, which become the European Cup eventually. We won that. We were in the final a few times. We were in FA Cup finals a few times, and I'm still haunted by 1973 when Sunderland, we lost 1-0 to Sunderland, and Ian Porterfield scored the goal. So his name goes down in history with me. Right down. Yeah, so just funny the things you think about, and that was a bad time for me. Bad time. But anyway, better days ahead. We're as I said, we're on our way back now, and hopefully we'll be able to establish ourselves as a force again.
Beautiful.
Moving on to your career now, I suppose. What was the first team you ever played for?
Played for East Bankstown. The park was 100 metres up the road from my place, and my best mate lived about 20 metres from the park. So we spent quite a lot of time there. I was, from the age of about 7, I was up there, on a Saturday morning and Sunday morning, putting their helping the old guys put the nets on. Call them old guys; they were only a bit older than me. But now, but yeah, putting the nets up at the park and spend my Saturdays at the park. Looking around to see if we can get a game in the older teams, if they were shorter players and stuff. And at the end, when we watch the all-age play, and then we pick up the papers afterwards and get a crusty old pie and a soft drink for our troubles. So it was a great existence. But yeah, East Bankstown was my first club, and I went back there 5 years ago and signed up in the over 45s. We've got in that team we've got seven life members in the club, and
wow.
People who've been secretaries, presidents, or whatever. So it's a fairly good little family club, and
yeah, cool.
Spent a lot of time there as a kid.
Beautiful.
Moving on to your coaching career, Norm. So, age of 13, you started coaching. Were you nervous to be taking a first grade men's team at the age of 13?
Yeah, I wished. But no, look, a guy, one of the guys that used to go and put the nets up, the older blokes used to go and put the nets up. He had a son playing in the under 8s at the time, and he said, come and coach. And he drove me around everywhere, and obviously, and picked me up, took me to training, and not training, took me to games and things. And mate, I had long hair halfway down my back and run up and down the sideline like a madman, and but they were some of the people that were in that team. Some of the parents that were in that team really shaped my coaching career, if you like, and my current status as as 41 years married. And gave me a lot of them values we talked about before, them life skills. Some of the people, as I said, they took me under their wing. We didn't. My mum and dad didn't have time to come watch me play soccer, and that was probably a good thing in a way when you see how people destroy their kids. Not that they weren't supportive. It's just that they worked a lot, and mum was sick, so she couldn't get to the football games. And these people took me under their wing, and as I said, they carved out my, they inspired me to get, be involved in coaching and become better and better at what I do in general life. So, yeah, that was the start of it when a bloke called Don Hubbard came and got me and said, listen, we want you to coach the team. And here it was. And, here we are years later. So,
was it a one-off thing for that year, or did you continue to do it for ever since?
Sorry, a one-off?
Yeah,
no. Sorry.
Did you keep coaching from then? Did you ever have a little break, or basically from? No,
I've coached continuously from then on to now. I forget how many years that is now. It's quite a few. We're coming up to close to 50 years now. So it's been a great ride, and I can't explain it any better than, I don't know. It's just been an unbelievable ride. The ups and downs, the ins and outs, the joy, the sadness, the friends you make along the way, friends you lost along the way. That fellow that I told you about who got me involved in coaching and helped carve out my who I am now. Passed some years ago, but we always remember him every year, and it's a great old thing. In that team though, there was a boy that went on and played in the National League, Rod Brown. I think he ended up with 134 goals. He had the highest goal scoring record in the National League until Damien Morey took it off him, and he went on to play. I think he played 6 or 7 games for Australia. He played in the youth team with Australia played at the Azteca Stadium in front of 100,000 people. That was a blast.
Wow.
And I'm just blessed to have worked with these players. Don't worry about it. I didn't do anything to make him a great footballer. He was already a tremendous footballer before he came to my team. Something like he scored 100 goals in the under 6s, I think, and that was back like in the 60s, in the 70s. So he scored 100 goals in the under 6s, but that's because he was a superb athlete. And you look at the game now, that wouldn't happen now, and it's a great thing that it wouldn't happen. But he was just a freakish athlete, and this is because he was so fast. You just used to score goals for fun, and especially in under 6s when you've got them big goals. So so it was funny. Yeah, I tried to destroy him, but I couldn't.
So succeeded despite, huh?
Yeah, no, he's a great kid, and he's as I said, he played in that grand final. I think it was '97 at Suncorp State or Lang Park Suncorp Stadium. 40,000 people there. They played. Frank and him scored the goals. Frank Farina and him scored the goals against Sydney United. 40,000 people, and no one would have thought we'd have 40,000 people at a football game in this modern era.
Yeah.
So and now we're getting much more than that. When we get the big games here and that. So that's a dream come true for me, seeing that sort of thing happening, regularly.
Good stories. You moved from Bankstown to be a development manager at Southern Branch. How did that come about, and what was your experience in your time in that role like?
Yeah, well, David Lee, and you remember David. David was one of my mentors. I think he was, and in his time, he was the foremost youth. I thought he was the best youth development coach in Australia, and that's talking about technical, not actual team coaching, because he fully admitted he couldn't coach a rat up a drain pipe sort of thing. He said that several times we had discussions, and David was the one that when the job was offered down in Southern Branch, he spoke to Ray Tweedy, and then he spoke to me, and I just said, look, what do you want to do with your football career? He said, do you want to be a professional coach, or do you want to work with youth development? And I thought about it for a while, and I said, well, youth development, there's a lot more longevity in youth development. I think there's a lot more benefits in being involved in youth development. So in terms of that, that's where I made my choice to be a youth development coach, and that's what happened. He basically got in touch with Ray and said, this guy's pretty good. And I went down there and had a talk with Ray, and next minute I was down there. So yeah, it was a great old time. It was, country football's unbelievable, and it was it was back in them days, and just to see some of the commitment of the country kids, and their parents, driving them hundreds of kilometres to get to training and things like that, we had a great old time of it in the day, and I do miss the country, the country trips, and getting out there and seeing the country kids in action, because there's so much talent out there. It's not funny, and they just don't get that opportunity, and they have to more and more. They have to move to the city to try and get those opportunities.
Yep.
I mean, we had a great old time, but I think you remember the camps we used to have, the inter academy games. They were great, and they were great for identification and getting the kids, to mingle with each other and know each other a bit better. But that was it. 97, and I was down there. I think I was down there till 2003.
Yeah,
it was a great time. Great time.
Beautiful.
Well, you've worked across both New South Wales Metro and New South Wales countrysides. What have you noticed as the key differences between those two squads?
Oh, look, I think, and I always said the same thing. We often used to have discussions about this, and the Metropolitan kids, because they play in hard competition week in, week out, they get the edge, or they used to get the edge. On the country kids who don't get that opportunity every week of playing in and out, against teams that are training the same amount of times and playing the same intensity that the Metropolitan kids do. The country kids don't get that. But the one thing with country kids, you didn't have to wind them up. In general, 99% of them, there's no chance, there's no way you had to go in and wind kids up to want to play, especially when they play the Metropolitan sides. There's no problem there on either side of the fence, by the way. My attitude towards the country kids was, they were sponges. They all wanted to learn. They all wanted to listen. And where I say all, the majority, because you always get a couple that don't want to toe the line. But the commitment, the camaraderie in the country kids it's just something special. It's like the Queenslanders have in the rugby league. It's something that, in my experience with the country kids, they have this bond. They have this automatic liking of respect for their mates, and not that the Metropolitan kids don't have it. It's not that they don't have it. It's a bit special in terms of what, and I don't know how to put it into words, but they just have this camaraderie amongst them that you can't buy. you can't teach that, and you can't give it. It's automatically in there, and I think it's inbred because of the commitment they make, their parents and they make toward wanting to become a better footballer. And I think that's, it's inherent in a lot of the kids in the country, and you must see it, you must see it. But being on both sides of the coin, I've seen it, and it's no disrespect at all to any of the metropolitan kids. I just think that this is something that the country kids have in there, because they have to make good of what they've got, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah. Oh, that's what I found anyway. It's just, someone said to me one day, they said, I'll show you how to motivate. You always get the metropolitan kids and this, that, the other. He said, I'll show you how to motivate the country kids. Well, I think he's dropped a couple of words you shouldn't use. Yeah. This is going back 30 odd years. He dropped a couple of words you shouldn't use in the thing, and I'm going, well, is that real? Is that how you motivate kids?
Yeah.
I think the team talk before the games of the country kids is a lot easier than with the metropolitan kids. Certainly in terms of what their roles are and what their responsibilities to each other are, and how they want to be seen. Whereas I think sometimes if you get things given to you, you take them for granted. So that's sort of a picture I paint there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do you have any key highlights of working with the New South Wales country teams, Norm, and how hard was it having to work with and put up with Rollo?
Well, Rollo, funny thing about Rollo is when I was in Southern Branch, we had academies in every association, and she was from the far south coast. So she was a Bega girl, and 10 years old, she came in, and I didn't know at the time that she'd, turn out the way she did, but she was something special. And then when I coached her later on, at the Rams in the women, she's just something. She's special. Just some of the things she does on the field, you think to yourself, she's not quick anymore, but she's just so intelligent. She sees things before other people do, and she, that's why she gets herself out of trouble quite a lot, and that's why she's been, playing for as long as she has. She's always been a good, good kid. Even when she was young, she just looked like she had something special. But yeah, I don't have any trouble with her. I know, I know how to handle her, sort of. But no, she's a great kid, and she's a real credit to her family and that.
So you had Sally Fitzgibbons in one of your country teams once upon a time. So did you turn her to surfing, or?
Well, I drove her away from football. That's another one of my success stories. See, no, Sally was when she was in the program, we had the kids all write in what their weekly thing was, and I've got it in my archive somewhere, and she comes back to me with 5 a.m. out of bed, grab the board, go to the beach, have a surf, come back, breakfast, all that. So she was into it from a young age, and she was quite a talented footballer as well, but she's definitely chosen the right path. And I run into her probably 2 years ago at the airport. She was on her way to Hawaii or something, and I think I was off over to Asia, but I ran into her then, and she's not changed a bit. Still that little bubbly, funny little, cute girl. She's fantastic. But yeah, I did a good job, didn't I? Yeah.
She made a good choice in the end.
She's done well. That's Kat Smith. I coached Kat Smith when she was in the country New South Wales team, and look at her now. She's done really well for herself. She's really going well with the coaching, and apart from a few injuries, she had a good go at it in the in the state teams and through into the National League and things. So she's doing a good job now. Some of the other, Sally Shippard, so it goes without saying, talking about people who see things before everyone else.
Yeah,
I think she saw many things happening before, and she was the original check your shoulder girl. It was just unbelievable to watch her play. We can still see vision of her now. She was regularly checking her shoulder well before all that came into play, and it wasn't something I told her to do. She just did it. She just naturally did it. So and technically gifted, both feet. Good athlete without being, super quick and things like that. But at the end of the day, she had a good career as well, and she turned into a lovely person as well. And I think they're the important things in football. You've got to be a good person as well as a good player, and these people we talk about are all good people. So yeah, it's really nice to be involved with them.
So you went club, branch, Football New South Wales, FFA. So you climbed the tree, which is great, and then you obviously come back and you're working at Macarthur. How's that experience going for you now in Macarthur?
Yeah, look, I've been nearly 6 years now. I've been here, and how it come about basically was, I'd had enough of sitting, in the big house behind the desk. I wanted to get back on the ground again and get my, feet dirty on the grass and boots dirty on the grass. So you can't do that. You can't do that from sitting, in an office. I mean, we could. When I went out to the States and places like that, you'd get on the field. That's fine, but that's only not as often as you want. So back on the field now, and you can't beat it, And I wanted to come back to the community. I wanted to come back to grassroots where I think this is where it is. It's nice to have done what I did and gone into the FFA and things like that. But really, you can't beat boots on the ground. You can't beat that atmosphere. You can't beat talking to players every day and then parents about how their kids are going and giving them things to work on and tips and things, and they give you some information about what you do. I often ask the kids, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? In terms of not so much about the game, because we always do that, but in terms of how do you think, I look to be treating people, could I do anything better if you're a kid? And sometimes I'll give you the answer. They'll say, yeah, you're a bit, your voice is sometimes a bit, you get a bit uppity or whatever. But that's all right. I take that on board, and it's not very often that happens, by the way. But you take that on board, and them days are gone well and truly. But yeah, I think you can't beat being on the ground at grassroots level. I mean, it's nice to be coaching, higher levels and things like that. But the club kids, that's where I come from. I come from the grassroots, and that's pretty much where I'll go at the end.
Beautiful. You were fortunate enough to coach W League Western Sydney Wanderers. How did you find that experience?
Yeah, terrific. And another thing, you sort of on the bucket list, you go, okay, this opportunity came up. I was working at the FFA at the time, and they kindly gave me the time that I needed to work with the Wanderers. And it was a great experience. I've got to say, we probably didn't. No, not we probably didn't. We didn't. We didn't perform as well as we could have. And that's the truth. But when you're working on a tight shoestring budget and playing against teams that have got big budgets, well, you've got to deal with it. And that was in the early days, and I'm glad to see now how far women's football's come. I was only up at Wanderers last year. We went up towards the end of the year and had a look around their new premises. And I walked into the girls' change room, and it was like, wow, what is this? That change room was probably worth more than cost more than our budget. So, but it's great to see how women's football's come on now. And, I'm proud of the fact that we were able to give three girls, 16-year-old girls, their debut. And we were playing Sydney FC at Parramatta. And I won't tell you who it was, but a commentator came over to me and said, we were walking around the field before the game, and a commentator come up to me and said, these girls here, these three 16-year-old girls, do they know who they're playing against today? And I said, no, you got it wrong. I said, today, does Sydney know who they're playing against today? and one of them girls is Ellie Carpenter and Jada Wyman, another country girl, and Eliza Amendolia, another country girl. So, we had three girls from country football who've made good of themselves. Eliza's over in Hawaii now playing college football. Yep. I think she's back home actually in Wagga. I think she's back home at the moment. I don't think she's back over there yet.
Back in Griffith at the moment, yeah.
Griffith, yeah. And as I said, Eliza Jada and they're Riverina girls, and of course Ellie, from out your way.
Yeah.
Went on to do good things, and as I said, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and they were good enough, and we were going to play them regardless of what happened. And I think the truth of the matter is we lost 2-0 that day, and Jada, unfortunately, Jada made a bad error on the first one, and that's but you got to learn from that. The bottom line is, if they don't get that, if they don't get an opportunity to perform on that stage, then we just keep them sitting on the bench, and you don't get experience sitting on the bench.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty proud of that fact. But as I said, we pretty much didn't really perform to our optimum. But at the end of the day, I'm glad to see where women's football's gone now.
Great.
So another sort of branch in your coaching career was being able to work with the Pararoos.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of work when I was development officer in Wagga with those type of programs, and I get so much out of that. How important do you think the programs are linked to the Pararoos, and how was your experience in that environment?
Oh, look, if we had, I had 2 years after the 2000 Olympics. I signed on as an assistant coach, and we went to some world championships in Argentina and in England. And look, if we had the programs then that they have now, they would have been a much stronger outfit. I mean, we were pretty good as it was, but yeah, look, them programs are vitally important, and I think they've got one. I think they've got one out here in Sutherland, and actually the Sutherland program, where they have, it's all abilities. They have a few players that are CPs, and to give them their opportunity, and then they play them. What they do is they play them in a competition, mainstream competition, but against obviously younger age groups. They're very important. I mean, if you look back, the closest we got to having any sort of a program was we'd have a couple of camps a year, and that was it. So there was no real identification network like there is now. We had one boy that was playing in the over 35s. He was only 17 at the time, but they allowed him in Southern Branch to play in the over 35s competition down there. So he was getting good competition. There's another guy he was only a mild case of CP, was David Barber, and I think David's probably not involved, but last I looked, he was a few years ago. He's a boy from Queensland, and he was very mildly affected. And he got to play in the state league, the low-level state league up there. But apart from that, there was no real opportunity to identify or develop players. So it's critical that you got them programs now. And I'm really proud to say that I was part of that in early days, because they're another group that you didn't have to do anything to get these kids to give you everything they got inside their body. They just they're special in that way, that they give you everything they've got. You know that from working with them.
Yep, 100%.
How was coach education changed since you started being involved in it in 1989?
It's a good question. It's a really good question, because coach education, it might have changed. It might have changed the way we do things now. As opposed to, I can show you manuals that I still got here, where we got two people standing there passing the ball back and forward to one another, and I'm glad to say we've come a long way since that. Like that was the old level 2 course, and you'd learn to do things in isolation. You'd have a square, and you'd have 3 people in the square, and you have to pass the ball and run to the open side. I don't know if you remember them, Andrew, but it was sort of that sort of stuff. So there was no there was no emphasis on decision making and stuff like that. They used to play things like 3-on-1 in a square, and there was no purpose to it. Look, we've come a long way. I think the game, you can see in the players that play these days, and the little ones. You watch the little ones play, and you see them doing some things that you shake your head and go, "Wow, where'd that come from?" Well, it had to come from two sources. One, it's inherent, or the other is that, or the other is that it comes from coach education, from people being better educated now than they have been in the past. Not technique in isolation, because I'm a little bit of a fan of that as well. But technique in isolation in terms of that passing to one another, backward and forward, and things like that, throwing the ball to we've come a long way in terms of involving the whole group in what we do. And making it more game-like. So if I could say that they were the things I think more game-centered activity. And now we're really heading down the path of player first, coach second. And I think there's some good things that we've done in coach education.
Obviously, credit to you for 50 years of giving back to the game and working in the sport. What are some of the harder challenges that you've faced through your sort of coaching, or and where do you find time to fit family in?
But I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. My kids have grown up. One of them hasn't grown up yet, but he'll get there. He'll get there. It's Bradley, Andrew. Yeah, look, some of the challenges have been towards the end. I actually did a few years in the Illawarra Premier League. I had 5 years with a club called Picton Rangers and 5 years with a club called Dandaloo Football Club, and they were good challenges in terms of we went. It was 2005. I went to Picton Rangers, and Picton Rangers had played in the grand final the year before and got rolled 4-0 in the grand final. And they were saying that the difference between, and we made the grand final the following year and won it this year that I came, and the difference was that they were waiting in the tunnel for 10 minutes before they were allowed to go on the field, and they basically fell in a heap, nervous. Blokes were nervous and things like that. So basically fell in a heap and got smashed in the grand final, despite the fact that they were a pretty good side. So the challenges for me were working with these players who were semi-professional and trying to get their head right and trying to change the culture. So when I went there, the culture was they had a very good, lovely bloke coaching them the year before. They were a highly spirited club. They had good camaraderie and things like that. And we had to change their mentality. That was one of my challenges, to change the mentality, to try and play a little bit. We didn't have to wait for the Dutch to get here and tell us to play out of the back. We wanted to play out of the back. And I'm not being disrespectful, but we wanted to play football, and that was a hard thing to get them to understand that, hey, when you get the ball, you don't have to hit it down the line all the time. You can play here, play it there, and start to play a bit of football. So that was a real challenge in itself, was getting inside their head and trying to get them to understand that we wanted to play football and try and keep the ball, where possible. And yeah, if you can, and I'm a big believer in the curriculum, and I'm a big believer in everything that we've been shown. But at the end of the day, you've got to have your own flavour on everything we do. There's certain structures you've got to stay within, but apart from that, everyone can't build the same house. You've got to build the house the way you want it. So getting inside their heads, getting players to change their mentality. And then I had a different one when I went to Dandaloo Football Club, and they were the Man United of Illawarra, because they'd won championships for four divisions up into the first division in about 7 years. So all of a sudden, they were playing in the first division, and I found myself coaching blokes like Alvin Checkerley, played for Australia, had a good career at Sydney FC and Japan, and Noel Spencer, who captained the Central Coast Mariners. So all of a sudden, I'm working with these guys, and now I'm challenging in a different way, because I'm not there to teach them anything. I'm there to help them, enjoy what they do. And I used to often have chats with them about, things that we do, and I ask, how do you think I'm going as a coach? Because you've been coached by Lee Barsky and people like that, and how do you think I'm going? How do you think I could get better? And talking to me about different things, like how I could get better in my game. But the challenge was really tough, because you're sitting there in the change room, you're talking to them, you're saying, listen, I need you to do this, and can you think about doing that? And, and these blokes could easily at any time turn around and say, well, who are you? Who are you to tell me? But respectfully, they didn't. And, ultimate professionals. And, they were challenging times for me, again, trying to get inside players' heads, trying to get to know what they do and see how they feel and they approach things. And, they had things that they wanted to add in as well. So it turned out to be a very, very good relationship in the end. But as I say, a challenging one for me, because I'm going to the game on weekends going, well, yeah, I had that little bit of experience coaching seniors with Picton, and now, and luckily, as I said, we had a bit of success with both clubs. So that was good. So I hope that sort of answered your question. There were different challenges working with different groups. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. So I remember once upon a time we did some country camps in Kinross, and I was a young coach, and I was the brunt of a few stitch-ups from you and Steve Roach and some others. But what I learned from you guys was something that probably started to shape my thought process in coaching. So I remember, in particular, I used to show players look away, pass, and be creative, and that's something that resonated in my head before it probably was more mainstream, really. But you also mentioned David Lee as a mentor to you. Who else has been a mentor in your career, and how important do you see coaches having mentors?
Well, absolutely. I believe in having someone to lean on, someone to pick up the phone, or somebody that you can go and have a coffee with, and as you said before, the valuable coffees, and share things with, and bounce things off. It's critical. Often we don't look for that, and I think we miss out because we don't. And I've got a saying, and I love this saying. I love it because I made it up, but I love it that way. But I love it because I think it should be something that everyone carries in their tool bag. I've never seen a bad session. I've only seen opportunities to learn, and I've never had a bad conversation with somebody because there's always something to get out of it. So yeah, look, having a mentor is critical. I've been lucky enough in my life to have a lot. As I said, when I was a young fella, there was this fellow called John Wildman who coached the year younger than me, who my best mate played in that team. So I would go and watch their training sessions all the time because my mate was in the side anyway, and sometimes I'd get to train with them. But he was, he was one that was well ahead of his time, and up until probably 10 years ago, I talked to him fairly often, even though he's only ever a club coach and a representative coach, like down at the club level. I think he could have gone higher, but yeah, he was, in my opinion, he was ahead of his time. He used to have diagrams of, players passing the ball here, running here, and doing this and doing that. So he, when talking about planning sessions and that, go back to the late 70s, and he was already planning his sessions. He's well ahead of his time. But yeah, having a mentor is very important. It doesn't matter what level they are. They don't have to be the most learned coach in the world, because, as I said, there's always ways to look at things, and what do you think of that, and what do you think of this, and I'm going to try this, what do you reckon, that sort of stuff there. And then there will be the times when they'll say, you know what, you should just shut up. It's true sometimes. Sometimes when you say nothing, it's better than saying something that doesn't make sense, if that's clear.
Excellent.
Oh, there's a sudden quietness.
What do you see as areas that can be improved in regional areas?
What can be improved?
Yeah.
In regional areas? I think just getting, different people out there to work. Like Andrew said before, there's some people in the city here that should get out to the country and do a bit of work in the country with the country coaches and the country kids. I think it's been lacking in years gone by. We, as I said, I go back to when I started. We used to go and do our country visits. I still remember hiring a car. New South Wales hired me the car, but I remember driving down after we played on a Saturday afternoon, and I drove down, got down into Wagga. I think it was late Saturday night, and then we're up early, 8 o'clock, I think, on the Sunday morning, and did some training with the country kids down there. I still remember the mist coming off the field, and I think it was Rawlings Park or something like that. But yeah, so they were the good times, and it's not that it should be you going down to Riverina, or you come up to Western, or you're going out to go to Southern or whatever it may be. Interact with each other, country coaches moving around and coaching the different kids from different places. I just think that they need more attention, and we've got to find the ways to take the game to them, rather than waiting for the big house to give the orders. Maybe find a way to get them country camps again, Andrew, and get the kids in that are a little bit more talented, or are dedicated to wanting to get a little bit better at what they do, because there's there's so much out there, and I'm sure they're screaming for extra work. So the reinventing of reinventing of the academy system, where I don't know how you're going to call it, but if you can reinvent that, where we used to have them weekends where the three groups come into to each other, or and play against each other, and they're good identification things as well. But you know better than I about your own landscape.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not about reinventing the wheel. So I mean, the TSB program been running in the past 2 years has been great with that, which is essentially just bringing in players from Western, Southern, Riverina to play against each other, and from an identification point of view, it's been exceptional. But what we have found is then you get players that were in the fringes that we hadn't really looked at before wanting to be involved in that program. Yeah. So it then has an overarching effect on players wanting to follow that pathway, and we just need to do more, for sure.
Yeah, mate. Look, I suppose when a couple of years' time when I retire, I'll make a few trips out to the country and just put my head over the fence and say good day and that sort of thing. But it's I mean, there's got to be people here that want to go out and not go out and tell the country coaches how to coach. Go out and see what they do. I think we need to have that relationship. Like 4 or 5 of us from the Rams should go out and have a weekend, and it can be a social weekend as well, but a weekend where we can get a group of kids in and watch them play or coach them or talk to them or whatever, and interact with the country coaches and give them some of our time as well. Not that we people from here that aren't any more intelligent football wise than people that live in the country. There's no saying that. But together, if we can get together more often, I think that's valuable, and interact with ideas and interact with how come how do you do this and how do you do that. So I'm all for that. I'm all for because it's easier for us to go out there than it is for the country people to come in here. I mean, once a year is not enough, is it? To come to the state conference, and I think, to be fair, we need to do a bit more on the field, at them things. But I don't in charge of them. But if we were to go, pick up 4 or 5 people from here and from anywhere around here and drive out there and just have a fun weekend of football and interaction with our counterparts out there. I'm also too, I think over the years we've had country kids stay here. I go back to 1990, I think it was, when a kid called Anthony Alves come down from Lismore, and he ended up playing for Melita Eagles, and he played for the Australian under-17s. He stayed at our place. Then we had some other people, Eliza and Kiralee, and that stayed here. We put them up over the years. So it wouldn't be any problem for a country coach to come down, or if we start a reciprocal offer to say, look, you guys come and stay here and use this as a base, and then go to where you need to go and go and watch a National League team train or an NPL side train, and you'd use it as a base and that sort of thing. And so
I think
exchange.
I think on that it's not about copying someone, but I think that football's a great thought process starter. So the more sessions that coaches can see, again, not about copying that session, but it's a thought provoking. So I like that. Why did you do that? I didn't understand why you did it, but now I do. So watching sessions and as opposed to anything else is a great way for coaches to really challenge their thinking, and then it may or may not shape how they see things going forward. So
that's right. I mean, you're a bit of everyone. I'm the same. I'm a bit of everyone. I'm a bit of that coach that was at East Bankstown back in the day. I'll tell you a funny story about him. He painted all his footballs black. Right, this is the 70s. Right, he painted all his footballs black, and I said to him, "Why'd you paint the balls black?" He said, "Because when we play with them, the other team, cop this, I don't know why he said it. He said the other team actually think they're heavier." He said, "I had a guy come to me one day and said, these balls aren't the right weight. He said they're heavier than the normal balls, and it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't." And I said, "What do you paint them black?" He said, "Because the other teams think they're heavier." I don't get it, but
psychological.
Well, I don't know. I told you he was ahead of his time, but he's thinking outside the square all the time. But it's a funny thing. But you pick up little bits and pieces from everyone. You you're not the coach you were, 10 years ago. You've changed. You've morphed into something. You morphed into someone else, or you've taken a bit from everybody else, and that's the way we should be. And I think that's the way. I mean, these coaches associations are great ideas, where people can go and interact with each other and discuss points and things like that. And because I've not seen the one that has it all yet. Not seen him anywhere. I mean, there's some good ones around, but I'm sure that everyone has all the ingredients.
Well, you mentioned some players earlier, such as Jada and Eliza, and we've showcased some on this show, such as Ryan Grant, etc. How did they best develop if they don't want to leave to a bigger area as early as some of those players did?
Difficult because they have to get the right intensity in their training. So if, and I think the coach drives it, but it's really difficult if you're not all on the same page. In terms of, say, you got Shirley or Ryan Grant or, whoever it might be, and they're excelling, you challenge them by putting them into a higher age group, of course, but how do you challenge them at training, and getting all the people on the same page in terms of training? And the only way you can do that is get the best players in the country and in the country areas and work with them all together and drive them. And then it's up to them to drive themselves at training when they go back to their own club training. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I think eventually you have to come to the city. But is there a way that we can take that intensity to them, by getting the best with the best? And I don't know the answer, the full answer to that. Just looking at Liam, goalkeepers are different because
goalkeepers are always different, mate. They're different.
I've always had the opinion that it doesn't matter if you played in a lower division and your psychology was such that you didn't care how many goals were scored against you, that you would develop better than another goalkeeper who played in a higher division who didn't get so much practice. Would you agree with that, Liam?
No, 100%. I just thought about that. Like, I sort of played for a team that, we were successful in juniors. We made grand finals a lot, but I always thought the same thing. I wonder if I was playing for one of the teams at the bottom of the ladder for those 6-7 years, how much better you'd become. You probably saving thousands of more shots a year type thing. And I 100% agree.
Yeah, organising the defence, getting practice at organisation and stuff like that. But it's very difficult to get that player with that mentality, going, okay, I do, because goalkeepers do care. They do care how many goals they let in. I'm sure you do. And I'm sure at training you're not going to get beaten at training. You don't want to get beaten at training because everyone takes the mickey, don't they?
Exactly.
But have that mentality of, okay, I know I'm going to get a lot of practice here, so I'll stay in this lower division side. But that would be hard to get. But getting back to that question, I don't know the answer, but it is important that at some stage they come to the city. There's a lot of pitfalls with that as well, schooling, study and all that sort of thing. Taylor Ray comes to mind. She plays with the Sydney FC girls at the moment. She comes down from Queensland. Kid called, another former state player called Gareth Eds, who went over and he played in England for a while. He had her in his stable up there, and he said, look, I can't do anything more for her. Can we get her a look in somewhere down here? Well, the rest is history. She came down and made it here. But yeah, look, it's a real tough one. I don't know. Apart from having just an all year round thing where your best players come in and train, and then go back to their clubs, I'm not too certain. I mean, you're already doing that, aren't you, to a degree?
Yeah. But I think also there's got to be, a conscious effort by the coach on talented players to make their training player-centric in the questions they want from that player, as opposed to their overall, team tactic stuff on a weekend. We're gonna play defensive like this. I think the coach is going to drive some really challenging decision making for the players that are talented. Can they do this? Can you do that? Try this. Make it more player-centric for that player to challenge themselves. Because again, similar to what you said about goalkeepers, it's not necessarily how successful they may be. So a striker, it's not really how many goals they score. It's how they can score goals under different types of pressure.
Yep.
So, keep pushing the bar for what they need to do. Keep asking questions about the number 10 and what kind of balls that they can play, and accept that it's not going to be always successful. The challenge is to test the player. What's their limits? Challenge their thinking. But again, we're going to change our coaches' mentality around, is it preparing always for the game on the weekend, or is it, what can I challenge individual players? That's my thoughts.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just trying to do better, or make it harder for the players that need to be, I suppose, to tailor make what they do specific to what they want. If that makes sense.
Yep. Cool. So just a couple of queries on coaching from your expertise. When you've had assistant coaches, how do you handle them in terms of, do you assign roles? How are they involved in session planning? How are they involved in team selections? How are they involved in roles on match day and at training? How have you handled that?
So with assistant coaches, that's exactly what they are. They're assistants, and they're not there just to put markers down. So, and I go back a long way, and it's the same. It's been the same all the time. They're not just there to put markers down. They're not just there to say pick up the drinks, or carry the drinks, or do whatever.
Buy coffees.
Yeah, buy the coffees. Yeah. And no, assistant coaches are important, and or again, you've got an extra set of eyes on the game. You've got an extra set of ears listening to what's going on in the change room as well. They can be your eyes and ears when you're not there, if you like. They got an important role in terms of I make sure that the players can talk to the assistant coach. If they can't talk to me, they don't feel they can talk to me, they can talk to the assistant. We've had that in vogue for a few years now, like with different teams I've had. And of course, sounding boards for like there'd be, I worked with Kelly Cross at Blacktown City in the 90s. And Kelly and I always used to get to training about 45 minutes earlier than we needed to be there, to prepare. So it ended up being about an hour and a quarter. And yeah, we'd have a good 15-minute talk about the game on the weekend, because we'd had a chance to reflect. Then we get in and have a talk. So I sort of use that a bit with my assistants. But yeah, they're as important as the coach is to the team, in my opinion. And I make sure that, they might put out markers and things like that. And then when we were with Wanderers, we had the opportunity to get the assistant coaches involved in the warm-ups and things like that as well. So they weren't just sitting there doing nothing. But an assistant coach is not just, someone that's there on the side, even though some of them don't get paid. They're someone to be respected. And, as I said, bounce ideas off, we often give them things to do, like we'll give them sessions, parts of sessions. And I make sure that the assistant coaches working with our SAP programs and that get exposure to actual coaching. Because a lot of assistant coaches don't get that exposure to actual team coaching. Yeah. So they're getting mentored by this person, but the person's doing all the work. So, often we'll tell the SAP coaches to, back off, let them do this one, let them do that one. Even if it's only a rondo, if it's only setting up a rondo and running a rondo, it gives them opportunities to talk to the players and guide the players in what they want them to do, or how they want them to react in certain situations. And that gives them experience in communication as well. And obviously organisation and getting their techniques, I suppose, better at getting information out of the players, if that makes sense. So we're big on, and I think everyone is anyway, we're big on guided discovery and giving the players the tools they need to understand how to play. And I'm big on basic technique with both coaching and coaching coaches. If that, try to clarify that. I'm big on the basic stuff rather than using long words to long sentences and long-winded sentences to get information across. We're trying to get the coaches to be more about questioning and guided discovery now than the rest. So they need practice. The assistant coaches need practice at that.
Cool. So just on that, obviously over time, designing a session's changed. I mean, I'm sure when you started, it was all in your head, and then it was probably on pieces of paper, and now we've morphed into, apps and different online formats for session design. How have you handled that? How do you see the designing of sessions having progressed?
Norm's is still on the back of a stubby holder, isn't it?
No, not quite. Look, it's changed a lot, but you can get overkill. And I've had coaches come to me with 6 pages of session plans, and I'm thinking, well, gee, hold on, that's a lot of stuff to get through in a training session, And at the end of the day, you have to nail it down to what's really important in training. I mean, planning your sessions is critical. There's no two ways about that. But to be able to put it into action is a different thing altogether. And I've been a big believer of over the years of just simplifying your training sessions into, and I think they got it right in skill training. Skill introduction, skill training, skill game, and your three sections of that, and then your 4 sections of your game youth license. So at the end of the day, it's not about all the fluff. It's about tidying up the information that you need to get across to the players, or the things that you want the players to understand and how you want to teach them. So, obviously it's changed a lot, but I don't see the need. Well, with my coaches here, we ask for a very simple training plan, and that can go onto our website. So before the COVID thing come in, we were trying to get a little library, and I'm sure you have something like this in your areas. We try to get a little library that the coaches would put their sessions down. They'd have the 3, make it nice and simple, and then we put it we'll build it into the library later for the local coach, because the local coach doesn't have any idea of 10 pages of information on all the things they need to do. They don't need that, and I think we'll scare them away if we start to do that. So we just simplify them. But planning is always has been, and always will be critical. Doesn't matter whether it's written on on whatever. As long as you've got a plan there, that's all that matters to me.
Excellent. Good advice.
What would your key advice be to young regional players looking to make it to that next level?
Advice?
Yeah.
Advice? Work harder, and work harder than hard. If that makes sense. Just keep working at it. Look, the bottom line is, I've said it all my life, and I'll keep saying it till the day I die. I'm a simple person. I like simplicity. Simplicity is genius in a way, and someone said that, someone more intelligent than me. But get the basics right. Do the basics well and often, and you'll get where you want to go. You're dedicated, and you do the basics well, and you do them often in games. You'll find that you look at the players in the world. How many special players do we have, as opposed to how many call them run-of-the-mill players? Run-of-the-mill. Everyone in their teams. Think about your teams over the years. How many special players did you have, apart from the goalkeepers? And how many run-of-the-mill players did you have? So what I'm saying is, if you're a run-of-the-mill player, you've got to be one of the best run-of-the-mill players, and the best run-of-the-mill player is the one that does the most things, the most simple things well. And you hear it. I've played in a few teams over the years in 35s and that, years ago, and blokes have coached me that, that wouldn't have a clue. But at the end of the day, they're the coach and I'm the player, and I'm not there to coach, I'm there to play. And I listen to all the talk around the team at halftime. Everyone's putting their 2 bobs worth in. I sit back and laugh. And you know what it comes back to? It comes back to simplicity.
Yeah.
Get the ball, give it, support it. You defend, get in between the ball and the goal. But everything, you hear all these things and they're going on and on and on. At the end of the day, it's a very simple game. And, we talk about the principles of the game back when I first started coaching, and, I cut my teeth on the British system, 3-5-2, and the old wing backs. And, the principles don't change. Depth and width hasn't changed. Triangles haven't changed. You know, since I was a kid, we were taught triangles when I was a kid. So, you know, if you do the basics well, if you're a good passer, you've got good both feet, you're reasonably good athleticism. The higher up the ladder you go, of course, that's more important. But if you get the basics right more often than not, you're gonna be a pretty good player. Yeah, and that talks about it talks to reading the game as well. You know, being able to read the game, and if you can do that, if you've got them basic skills right, and you're a good reader of the game, you've got a fair chance.
Excellent.
Would that advice change at all for regional coaches that are wanting to try and give back to the game or push on to that next level of coaching?
Yeah, I think I think the whole lot is boiled down to getting the basics right, being good at what you do, and as I said before, planning. It doesn't matter for me. You know, if I'm encouraging local coaches to plan, I'm saying you plan the best way you can, as long as you plan. Okay, I don't care if it's written on the whiteboard. You take the whiteboard to training with you. I don't care. I know that the visuals, and now they do a lot of visuals and things, which is great. Okay, because it gets the kids to understand. Yep, you need to be here, and here, whatever. That's fantastic. But whatever works for you as a coach, as long as it's, as I said, as long as it's planned, and you know what you're going to do, and you've rehearsed it at home, and you've gone through it, all the things that we need to do. But then again, the higher up the ladder you go, then the more things you're going to have to add to your armory. But yeah, I say keep it simple. Keep it simple as possible. You know, and for me, that's what coaching's about. I've always coached the same way. I've always coached, you know, you do the simple things well, and then you make them difficult when you need to. And that's when your special players come in, or your players, you know, sometimes players morph into what they really are in terms of this. If a player's a little bit less on the athletic side, you won't find them taking people on all the time. You won't find them taking people on all the time. They'll get people close, and they'll draw them in close, play it, go, and give it, go, whatever. So you almost by nature turn into what you are, what you're good at. Okay, so I'm not quick. I'm not going to beat people. I've probably never beaten many people with the ball. More throwing them off balance, or throwing them over the back or something like that. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's look, just keep it very simple. That's all I say is make it as simple as possible, and if not, simpler.
Beautiful. So I can't see you retiring anytime soon, but what does the future hold for Norm?
Look, I'd love to be here for another 3 years. 3 years to set something up and leave a legacy, and you know, be able to come back in 10 years' time and say I was part of that. You know, like we do with the state teams and things like that. Like to come back and go, I was part of that. I didn't build it. I didn't make that player. I was lucky enough to work with them, and I'm probably 3 years and leave something. We're setting something up. We're having this review at the moment of the rep programs here. Hopefully that comes out the way we want it, and then we move on from there. But as I said, probably 3 years here, and then go and do something. I don't know what I'll do, but I'll still be in the game somewhere. But at the end of the day, as I said, maybe 3 years, get someone in here that can take over the reins and leave a legacy, and then come back in 10 years' time and say, well, you know, that's going pretty well now, you know. So, yeah, it's been great, mate. Look, I've been blessed. You know, I never become a professional player, but I've been to more countries playing football in coaching courses and things like that than most of my mates who have been professional players, and I'm still going on now. I do have the record, and I think it's maybe a world record in my own head anyway, in my space. I've scored a goal in every country I've been to. Do you know that?
No, I didn't, but do now.
Every country I've been to, I scored a goal.
No goal
did it? No. You know, when you go on a coaching course, well, most times we have to do the work ourselves, right? In all cases, in all countries I've been to, we've done sometimes we did one session, or we might do 3-4 sessions, or they get the kids in. But we always had to do one session or play at least one game. So I don't care. Wherever I was in Brazil, I walk up, no goalkeeper, kick the ball in the net, scored. So I have scored a goal. I have scored a goal in every country. But
I like it.
there was no teams to play against. But yeah, look, I've been blessed. As I said, I've been blessed, and I was shaped by them people that gave me the opportunity. Back at East Bankstown at my club, and met so many great people in that time, and still meeting people. Liam and Kyle now that I didn't know before. I feel like I know well now. But it's just such a great game. It's just such a great thing to be involved in, and to see where the game's going now with coaching. Coaches are becoming a lot more precise than they used to be. They're getting more organised, as you said. You can have that much information, or you can have this much information. Doesn't matter. It's what suits you. We see different styles of coaching. We're starting to see people, I'd reckon in the last 15 years now, being more open, whereas before it was more closed. And that's never been my way anyway. But you see, there was a lot of people keeping their little secrets to themselves, what they thought were secrets. But there's no secrets in football now. It's just out there, and that's what the beauty of the game. Everybody sees it differently. They talk about in Brazil, they've got 170 million professors or something, of the sport. Well, we mightn't have that many professors here, but we've got a lot of people who got deep knowledge of the game. And I'll tell you this now, and this is from my experience worldwide. We are well up the top of the ladder in terms of our coach education and our coaches here in this country. We don't realise how good our coaches are, and that starts from regional coaches right into your Sydney FC coaches. People don't realise how, when you compare us to the rest of the world, and I've been to a lot of places in the world, when you compare us I think we're well on top. And that's part of the reason when I was at the AFC, I knew for a fact that they didn't really want us, or anyone outside their little thing. I'll tell you how that came about. I was on an AFC panel, and we were doing a technical study. Anyway, I had to report to this guy who was my superior, supposedly in there. So anyway, we did the match report, and I started putting in, they had a problem in the midfield, and the 6 and 8 weren't working off each other, and this, their runs were the wrong runs to support. And so I started writing all this information in. And he said, no. He said, you just need to write the midfield players aren't connecting with the fullbacks. Okay. So that told me, what would that tell you? If I told you to just do that. Because he was putting the reports in. He didn't want himself to be seen as inadequate in putting the information in. So they are very protective of their own lot. But yeah, it's interesting. And as I said, we underestimate ourselves here. We've got some great quality here, and at all levels, by the way. You can see them out in the NPL space and youth out here on the weekends. You can see them anywhere. So everyone's got some good qualities there. We just need to be able to express them a little bit more.
Cool.
Well, the final question, which we've asked everyone so far, is Messi versus Ronaldo. Which side are you on?
Wow, that's a tough one, They've probably scored. I read something once where they scored over 700 goals for club and country. Okay, so I'm thinking that, what? That's a bad question. That's a bad question. To ask me to separate two champions who have changed the course of the game, I would say, especially when you look at Messi. Okay, let's go. He's a great dribbler. He's a fantastic dribbler. He's got that ability to beat people one-on-one and excite the crowds. I think I'll go for Ronaldo. Is that all right? Is that a fair answer or not?
No, it's a wrong answer.
I think it's a fair answer. Very fair answer.
Well, the bottom line is, mate, how do we compare them?
Yeah, of course.
How do you do that? And I'm sure everyone else has said the same thing. How do you LA George Best? Really?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Look, thanks.
Splitting hairs here. Splitting hairs.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll try and get out in the new year sometime.
Beautiful. Sounds
interesting.
Well, thanks for joining us, Norm, and obviously credit to yourself for working within the game and giving back to football for as long as you have, and I'm sure you've left a mark on a lot of people. And thank you for joining us on the Regional Football Hub and taking the time to share your experiences and give some advice to regional players and coaches. And we wish you all the best for the future that holds, and I'm sure we'll see you around on a football field sooner rather than later. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.